This is the Dragonfly double knitting coaster tutorial for a first dive into double knitting, or just to make a coaster if that's what you want. Today I am using Kelburn Woolen's Germantown. That is a 100% non-superwash wool. It's RN weight. And I selected that because it's got really great saturated colors, because it's non-superwash. I can felt it a little bit at the end if I want to. I wanted wool because it will grip pretty well as you're doing your color work. And at the end, when you block it, it's gonna bloom and hide irregularities and imperfections. If what you've got is Red Heart Super Saver or crafting cotton, anything that works up to RN weight, that's gonna work out okay. Wool is probably the best for this kind of project, but other fibers are okay if that's what you got on hand. This is the chart, and you'll notice that it has 19 stitches. It's actually 19 stitches on the side that's facing you and 19 stitches on the reverse side, which means that each row is going to be 38 stitches long. So we'll be casting on 38 stitches. You'll also notice that we've got color A and color B here. Usually when you're doing color work, you see main color and contrast color, MC and CC. In this case, we're doing color A and color B for double knitting. We're doing a tubular cast on. That's going to get you set up to use both colors, and it's going to give you a really nice invisible cast on edge that just flows seamlessly into your double knitting. It begins pretty much the same way as your long tail cast on. So if that's what you're comfortable using, this will also be very easy for you. Let's get that started with 38 stitches. We're going to hold both colors together and form a slip knot. Now usually when I am casting on, when I work back across, I'm going to use that slip knot as a stitch. But in this case, we're just using the slip knot to anchor the yarn to the needle as we cast on. So we're doing 38 stitches in addition to the slip knot. We don't count this as a stitch, and when we work back across, when we reach it, we're going to just drop it right off the needle. Now, for your long tail cast on and your tubular cast on, you're going to have your hand in this shape. So make a gun, or if you're a pacifist, set your phasers to stun. And then just grab that yarn right there in those fingers, and you're going to pass your fingers right through the yarn. All right, so I'm going to take my needle in front, I'm going to come up under color A, and I'm going to nab color B and pull it back under. Now, I'm a very loose knitter. I'm using a size 3 needle. I've recommended that you use a size 5, adjust up or down as you need to. You do want a fairly dense fabric, otherwise the back side is going to peep through the front side and your color work will be kind of spotty looking. But again, you want it kind of tight, but you don't want to be working with a death grip on your yarn. You don't want it to be so tight that you're having trouble working into the stitch. That's going to distort it. It's going to make it too dense. But when you're casting on, you do want to pull a little bit tighter than you usually work. We want to increase our tension for this particular cast on. Otherwise, it's going to flare and it's going to be really messy and ugly when you're done. So I've got my first stitch on here. Now I'm going to come around behind and up again, grab color A. So now I've got 2 stitches on my needle. I'm going to start to work a little faster here. If it's too fast for you, just hit pause until you've got them all on your needle. If it's too slow for you, sorry. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, what? 38, drop that off, there we go. We're good. All right, so we've got our 38 stitches on the needle, and that slip knot will not be worked. Now we're gonna start with color A, and you can see that row 1 is all color A on the front side, which means on the back side all the stitches will be color B. And as you're working, you are alternating the stitch that shows on the front side with the stitch that shows on the back side, which means we will be starting with color A and then we'll be working with color B. I'm a continental knitter. That means that I hold the yarn in my left hand. That tends to be easier for crocheters to learn because you're tensioning the same way. English style knitters hold their yarn in their right hand. There are some folks who are really comfortable holding color A and color B, or their main color and contrast color, in each hand, and that tends to speed them up when they're doing color work. But I haven't taught myself how to do that, so I'll be holding both in my left hand. So I'm going to work this first stitch on my needle, which is a knit stitch, with color A. Now I'm going to bring both colors to the front. I'm going to work color B, a purl stitch, and then I bring both yarns to the back. So I'm going to keep going just like that. I'm going to knit the side that's facing me, and then I'm going to bring both yarns to the front. I'm going to purl. I'm going to purl the reverse side. So you're going to do that all the way across. If you have never done this before, or like me, you've only done it a few times, it'll take you a little while to get used to positioning the yarn in the right spot. I pulled out my my sharps for this because I wasn't sure I'd left my size 3 fixed needle, and they're a wee bit sharp. So each time I'm working a knit stitch, I'm working the stitch that we'll see on this side. And each time I'm working a purl stitch, that stitch is going to pop behind the knit stitch as we work our next row. And that will be the opposite side. Okay, so we're coming up on our last couple of stitches here, and we're going to do something a little bit different when we reach the last 2 stitches. That'll be the same for this and for every row. Now, we've got the last 2 stitches on the needle. Remember, we do not count this slip knot. So we're going to move the yarn to the back and then just slip that stitch without working it. Now move only your color B to the front. And we're gonna slip that stitch. All right, let's get rid of that slip knot there. Bye-bye. Now, we're going to turn it around. We are now working the reverse side of the coaster. We've got our color A in the front and our color B in the back. And you'll see that color B is dominant on this side, color A is dominant on this side. So now we're going to pick up our chart and take a look. And remember that this is the chart to show what we see when we're looking at the front of the coaster. The back side of the coaster, these colors will be reversed. So we worked all the way across from right to left on the front side. Now we're working back on the back side. So the first 4 stitches, they will show color A on the front side, but we're working on the back side. So we're going to work the first 4 stitches with color B. And then we're working the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then 4 again. We've got 4, 11, and 4. Okay. So we're gonna work this first stitch fairly loosely because this was the stitch that we slipped on the previous row. If we work it too tightly, it's gonna pucker. So we'll work that first stitch more loosely. We're gonna bring it down to the front, and now we need to lock the yarn together. We don't want to have a gappy slip stitch edge that will hang off the side of our project. So we're going to take this color A, bring it up and over the tail of color B. Okay, and now we're going to purl this stitch. And now we have our yarn together. We are ready to move it to the back. So we're going to do 3 more stitches with color B. 1, 2, 3, all right, sharp needles jamming it right through the plies of the yarn. So now we've got those first 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to do the next 11 stitches where we're knitting with color A. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're going to switch again, but before we do that, let's go back and take a look where we swapped. You see that we have got 2 stitches in a row of the same color. That is all that you're ever going to see. You're going to see either alternating colors or you'll see 2 stitches in a row of the same color. You'll never see more than 2 stitches in a row of the same color when you're double knitting, unless you've done something wrong. And the reason is that when you're double knitting, you are always pairing a color A and a color B. Either a color A on the side that you're working and a color B on the back side, or a color B on the side that you're working and a color A on the back side. So you're always having pairs of both colors. So if those pairs switch orientation, like this, you got BA, 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 BA. Now we're going AB, 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 AB. So you've got these 2 stitches in color A next to each other, but you'll never have more than that because every stitch is paired with a reverse side stitch. One of them will be your color A and one will be your color B. So now we're back over here. So this is where you're going to see 2 stitches in a row of the same color because we're switching from knitting with color A and purling with color B back to knitting with color B and purling with color A. I apologize for the state of my hands. I could give you all kinds of excuses, but the fact is I just don't take good care of them. All right, now we're down to our last 2 stitches, and just like before, we'll pass the yarn to the back, slip the first stitch, then we're gonna bring the yarn that matches the last stitch to the front and slip that stitch. Now we're gonna turn around and work the next row. And we're gonna look at our chart again. We're working it exactly the same as before. That's so easy. You're gonna knit or purl each stitch with the same color that is already on your needle. How convenient. Now the first thing that you're gonna do is go ahead and knit with just this color in back. Work a little bit looser than you have been. Now bring it to the front and you're gonna pull the other color over it and purl to lock both of your working yarns together again. Keep that slip stitch edge snug against the rest of your project. Now you've got both yarns together. Move it to the back and we can just start zipping away because we don't have to check our chart. We don't have to count any stitches. This row is easy peasy. And from here, I'm gonna leave you guys to your own devices. You go on ahead and work your way through the chart. And at the end, I'm gonna give you a little refresher on the Kitchener stitch, which is how we are going to bind off. Interestingly, we're gonna do a 1 needle Kitchener stitch because when we finish, we'll have our 2 sides on the same needle. Usually when you're doing Kitchener stitch, you've got 2 pieces on 2 separate needles and you're working them together off of both of those needles like this. But in this case, we have both sides on 1 needle. So there will be a slightly different method. It'll come out exactly the same, but I'll show you how to get it set up at the end of this video. Happy knitting! Okay, I'm back. I have finished my coaster. Here is the front side. Here is the back side. I have trimmed my color B, so it's long enough to weave in. Because I'm going to felt this a little bit, I'm only going to weave it in a touch and then just pull it between the layers. If you're using a more slippery yarn like a superwash or acrylic or cotton, you're probably going to want to weave it in just a little bit more than that. And I have cut my color A to about the length of my arm. So now I'm ready to do this tubular 1 needle Kitchener stitch bind off, which will match this cast on here, which looks so tidy now. All right, so there's a couple of moves to set it up, and then after it'll just be repeating. So the setup, we're gonna do pass the needle through the first stitch purlwise, pull that through, then come up behind your work we're gonna go through knitwise this second stitch and pull that through. Hey, there's a helicopter coming over my house. Huh. All right, that's the setup. The next few moves are just gonna repeat over and over. We're gonna work into the first and second color A stitches, then the first and second color B, then first and second color A, then first and second color B, all the way across. So first, we're gonna pass the needle through knitwise into this color A stitch, drop it off the needle, then purlwise into this color A stitch, and pull that yarn up. Now, purlwise through color B, drop it off the needle, and then coming up from behind, knitwise through color B. Not you. And we're just going to repeat that over and over again. Knitwise through the first color A stitch, then purlwise. Purlwise through the first color B stitch, boop, then knitwise from behind your work. We're going to continue doing that all the way across. When you get to the end, weave in your ends, hide your ends. If you've got wool, cotton, another protein or cellulose fiber, you'll block it by soaking it in water. Soak it for like 10 or 15 minutes. Press the water out, roll it in a hand towel to remove more water. Then pin it out to your blocking mat. I use those cheap kids' alphabet mats they sell at the big box stores. If you've got real blocking mats, those are nice because they tend to have dimensions and all kinds of grids and things that are so helpful. Use stainless steel sewing pins, quilting pins, T-pins. I'm going to use my blocking combs because they're already a nice straight line. That's convenient. And so you pin it directly to your blocking mat and leave it to dry. If you have 100% non-superwash wool and you want to felt it, you can turn the water on in your sink to as hot as is comfortable for you, as hot as you can stand to have your hands in it. And just put it in there, get it really wet and scrunch it, rub it, mush it up, agitate it really well, and it will felt, and then pin it out. It'll shrink a little bit as it felts. If you are working with acrylic, put a cotton bath towel down on top of your blocking mat. Get out your clothes steamer or get your clothes iron and set it to steam. Put water in the reservoir. Pin your coaster out to the shape you want and hold that iron just above the surface. Don't make contact. If you make contact, you're gonna burn your yarn, you're gonna melt it. The reason we heat block acrylic is that acrylic is plastic. Plastic doesn't care if you get it wet. It's not going to block for you. So you have to actually physically change it with heat. You have to melt it just a little bit. So I'm just gonna keep working all the way across here and we'll have us a coaster. You guys carry on. Don't forget to set up a Ravelry page so that those who come behind you can see what you did, read your notes, any improvements or corrections you have, so that if you ever decide to do it again, you'll remember how much yarn you used and what needle size you used. You guys take it easy.